Hey everyone, Pastor George here, and today's Theolog, I wanted to talk about Ukraine, but not really the geopolitical situation. I'm not a politician or anything like that, so it doesn't really matter what I have to say about that. What's more interesting is I've been watching the religious response to it, both from Russia and from Ukraine, but also in the United States as well. And it's been really interesting because it goes to show maybe the folly or um, danger that there is when the church allies itself to the state too much, especially in the case of Russia. Um, but also, like how the church can be used as a weapon or as a tool for propaganda, even outside of those stuff like that. So, just for everyone to know, because I know not everyone's aware of the religious breakdown of the world. Both Ukraine and Russia are Eastern Orthodox. So they come out of the Greek tradition, right, of Eastern Greek Orthodox, and they were converted. The Russians both seeing Kiev as an important part, just to cut into history a little bit. That's where the Russian people, what would become to be seen as a shared Russian identity, which is kind of what this whole war is about, right? Whether Ukrainians are Russian, whether they're their own thing, it's a whole thing. I'm not going to comment on that. Both of them though trace their Christianity to the baptism of the Kievan Rus, which are the people who lived in Kiev by the Byzantine Empire into the Eastern Orthodox faith, right? So both of them are very much Eastern Orthodox, see themselves in that tradition. And for those who don't know how the Eastern Orthodox Church has functioned, it's always been very closely tied to the state. So in the Byzantine Eastern Roman Empire, the patriarch of Constantinople was under the emperor. And that basically is how it works in every Eastern Orthodox country. So any country that has a Orthodox population, they work closely or see themselves as being under the authority of the government, unless it's in like Western countries like the United States where there isn't that tradition, right? But in Romania, in Bulgaria, in Serbia, in Ukraine, in Belarus, and in Russia, they've always had this very close relationship. Now, obviously, during the Soviet Union and Russia, that wasn't the case. But since the fall of the Soviet Union, the Russian Orthodox Church has experienced a resurgence in popularity and a very close tie to the state. And that's especially true under Putin. And you can see this. I mean, I'll just one of the images I'll put up here is going to be of the church blessing like missiles and stuff like that for the Syrian conflict a few years ago. And you can see that it's that close, right? Even chaplains in the United States can't do stuff like that, right? So it's almost as though it's kind of like back to being under the king or whatever. And it's been interesting to see that because there's been a split. Because before the Ukrainians would have been under the Russian Orthodox patriarch, but in a few years ago, the kind of the head honcho, the guy in Constantinople, which is in Turkey, right, in Istanbul, he made the Ukrainians have their own patriarch because he has the ability to do that. And the Russians hated that. And so there's actually been a split in the Eastern Orthodox between kind of the Russian focus and the Greek focus because of that. Regardless, though, you can see it's breaking down across national lines. And so when Russia invaded, you had the Patriarch of Moscow, who's like the head of the Russian church, saying Russia is showing evangelical love to the Ukrainians, right? Then you also have the Ukrainians saying, having their priests get very involved and defending um, the people fighting against the Russians, right? So you have a really deep kind of religious divide here. It's really interesting because of that. And so it's had this religious element, right? And that can be good in the sense of like the Ukrainians, because we think that they're kind of on the right side, so it's good that the church is taking an active stand there. But you can see it also kind of bad because once it gets really close to the state, the success of the church depends on the success of the state. And you don't really want that because states are sinful and evil and do bad, stupid things, right? So it's really a difficult relationship that the church has always had. Um, and here's the thing that's been interesting and where I think there's hope is because in Ukraine itself, there's been a wide expectation among the churches, both Protestant Eastern Rite Catholic, Ukrainian Orthodox, even Russian Orthodox, of like not letting themselves be taken by either side in the sense of opening themselves up as hospitals, opening themselves up as refuges, keeping open for worship and stuff like that. And I think that's a good thing. And I think the most powerful thing the church can do, and I think this was said by one of the Baptist ministers in the Ukraine in an article I read by Christianity Today, is that like the ability to still love your enemy. And that is actually a really good, right? Because that's what the church is all about. Even when you're fighting in this, life or death struggle between nations, right? What's actually more important? Well, if you love your nation, you want it to survive. But what really is more important is making sure that you're communicating Christian virtues and Christian values to other people. And I've been really proud to see that a lot of Ukrainian churches have been doing that despite the onslaught that Russia is sending at them. So I don't know how this thing is going to shake out, but I just wanted to kind of explain the religious things because that is really important. It is under the surface, right? There is this tension in the Eastern Orthodox Church between the center power of Russia and the center of power in other places, and how the Russians kind of see themselves as the head, and you kind of can see that working under the surface through other geopolitics. So even things that we might not think have a religious element sometimes do. So just something to be aware of, and a good warning to ourselves. All right, you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow for our Bible study recap, and peace out.